Turkey's fiercely contested presidential election is heading to a runoff after neither Recep Tayyip Erdogan nor his rival Kemal Kilicdaroglu made it to the 50% threshold needed for an outright win. So the country's Supreme Election Board has formally announced the runoffs to be held on May 28th to decide Turkey's next president. With almost all ballots counted on Monday morning, Erdogan led with 49.42% of the vote to Kilicdaroglu's 44.95%. This is according to official figures provided by the state news agency. Erdogan's claim that his ruling alliance had won a majority in Sunday's presidential elections made headlines. He also added, however, that he is ready for the slated rerun.
Kesin sonuçların çıkmasıyla bu rakamın çok daha yükseleceğine inanıyorum. Seçim sistemimizin %50 artı bir oy sınırı sebebiyle Cumhurbaşkanlığı seçiminin ilk turda bitip bitmediğini henüz bilmiyoruz.
Meanwhile, Erdogan's rival is confident of winning the runoff, underlying the fact that more than 50% of the voters expressed their will for change in society. In his first appearance after polls closed, Kilicdaroglu said that Erdogan's party was destroying the will of Turkey.
Erdoğan, bütün iftira ve hakaretlerine rağmen beklediği sonucu alamamıştır. Hiç kimse bir oldu bittiye heves vermesin. Seçim balkonda kazanılmaz. Veriler şu anda akmaya devam ediyor. Milletimiz ikinci tur diyorsa başımızın üstüne. Bu seçimi ikinci turda mutlaka ama mutlaka kazanacağız. Herkes bunu görecek.
With the third contestant in fray, Sinan Oğan, managing 5% of the votes, both Erdogan and Kilicdaroglu are hoping Oğan's supporters will shift to their side in the runoff. Moreover, the parliamentary elections will also play a major role in the runoff. The overall parliamentary results so far suggest a victory for a range of nationalist parties, but a surprise loss for the six-party opposition coalition headed by Kilicdaroglu would expect it to clinch a majority. If successful, Kilicdaroglu has pledged to restore a parliamentary democracy system rather than Erdogan's presidential one. Erdogan, on his part, had curbed Parliament's voice in the later part of his tenure. Well, for more on this, we are joined by Colonel Rich Outzen, joining us live from Washington, D.C. He's a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council in Turkey. Colonel, welcome to WION. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, some people that we talk to here in the United States say that they're open to change. They have an appetite for change moving on from Erdogan. However, it seems that Mr. Erdogan's decision to step up nationalist rhetoric during his campaign, it has paid off. Can you talk about this for us?
Certainly, and it's a pleasure to be with you. So nice to start the week here with WION. The Turkish electorate does swing to the right. It's heavily sort of center-right with a heavy dose of nationalism. Traditionally, there's been very few times when a center-left-led alliance has actually won a major direct election, either for parliament or more recently for the presidency. So Erdogan made the estimate that Turks would feel less than fully confident in the opposition candidate if he could paint him as being soft on security, being adjacent sort of to the PKK, which is the terrorist group, foreign terrorist organization that is Turkey's number one security threat. So he stepped up those sorts of attacks in recent weeks. It seems to have worked. The turnout for nationalist parties was pretty high. Both the Nationalist Party aligned with Erdogan, the MHP, increased their parliamentary share by one seat. So too did the Nationalist Party aligned with the center-left, the CHP. They have EE Party, which is also nationalist. But most surprisingly, in the presidential election, even though Erdogan dropped several percentage points from his 2018 performance, Kilicdaroglu, his main center-left opponent, did not directly benefit. And as a matter of fact, he underperformed somewhat what he and his allied parties did in 2018. The beneficiary of this was Sinan Oğan, who is also a nationalist. So I think we can summarize this as being a strong result for the nationalists. Erdogan's tactic of tacking to the right succeeded, as well as some of the sort of personal attacks against Kilicdaroglu and calling him into doubt. And Kilicdaroglu did not appear to win some of these critical center-right swing votes.
And it really does seem that the Turks have faith in the election process, despite the fact that there were some organizations who were claiming that Erdogan ultimately has an edge for a variety of reasons, one of them being that he has the media on his side. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's right. There's a power of incumbency that's particularly strong in Turkey. It's been described as a sort of a free press, but one in which the government has the commanding heights of press because they've been able to restrict sort of the freedom of maneuver of some of the opposition press outlets and make it more difficult. So maybe 90% of the press, by one estimate, is sort of government friendly, right, or AKP friendly. So what that means is it's not exactly a level playing field. Also, the power of incumbency means that President Erdogan has been able to make many promises of sort of free gas and free houses and government largesse to many voters, which some found compelling, and also to highlight what he's done as an incumbent in foreign policy and energy policy and so forth, and not focus attention on the rather weak economic results of the last year. That said, the mechanics of the election in Turkey are pretty solid. They have all of the parties are allowed to watch the voting from start to finish. They see the filling of the ballots, the transportation of the ballots, the validation, and the final counting. All of them can object. And there were very few allegations of significant fraud or irregularities. Compared to some places in the United States, I think we might say that this looked pretty good in terms of free and fair conduct. But again, the power of incumbency means that it was not exactly a level playing field.
Colonel Rich Outzen joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be watching these elections very closely. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thanks again.